The new raid has launched for global and they are giving us just 6 days to complete it. Now, I don't know how I feel about this because we are limited to 3 attempts per day, meaning we can only get through part 3 on day 1, we can get through part 6 on day 2, and then finally on day 3 we can take on part 7. And I wish that it wasn't so short for the amount of time they've given us, because in the exchange center they have definitely changed this since JP and KR. JP and KR, you were able to get 2 of these and the event went for longer, and I know a lot of people as free-to-play players are upset because they have just pushed things out so quickly on global, including this raid, and people are like, my characters aren't leveled up enough yet, this is so pay to win because I can't even compete in this raid. And I understand your sentiments, I really do, but at the same time, I think if you are able to follow this guide or follow any other guides that other people are doing, you could probably do a lot of this as free to play and at least get the SSR versatile mage piece. Now, if you're asking how to prioritize the shop as a free-to-play player or even as a pay-to-play player, I would prioritize this SSR versatile mage piece first, and then I would probably get the stamina, because stamina is always going to be important in the game. And then from there you can either choose to get the skill level up items or you can choose to get the Yule. Both are about equally as important, but the thing you definitely don't want to worry about buying is the dishes here or the food, because that's definitely not going to be worth it from this raid. So I already cleared part 1 of the raid. Part 1 is really easy. Part 2 is also, I would expect it to be fairly easy. So I'm going to show you guys my team here, and then I will skip part 2. I'm not going to show part 2 in the video because part 2 is not going to be that hard. I don't think people are going to struggle with it, but where people are going to start struggling is parts 3 and 4. So this video will be for part 3, and then I will probably do a separate video for part 4 and 5, a separate video for part 6, and a separate video for part 7, because part 7 is where it's going to get really difficult. So let me show you guys my teams that I have set up right now. This first phase is a blue type enemy. This second phase is a red type enemy, I believe, if I got that right. Hopefully I remember correctly. Yeah, blue defender, and then for this one it is a red attacker. Okay, so the idea behind taking this on is to nuke both of these enemies, and what I have here is a debuffer, another debuffer, a buffer, the way I'm going to use her, and then I have my main attacker who is going to be licked. Now, in terms of like team setup, what else could you do besides this team right here? Because this honestly isn't even necessarily the optimal team. A better character or attacker here would be Raya, but I don't have Raya, so I'm using Licked. Another good option would potentially be Red Yami. Red Yami is pretty good as an attacker. Another good option is Asta as an attacker, but I'm using Asta on my phase 2. So those are just a couple of ideas for attackers that you could be using. And then for the supports and debuffers, why am I using the characters that I'm using? I'm using Mimosa because if you go into her kit here and you look at her combined attack, it grants the partner mage increase attack level 5 buff and a 50% chance to grant them a special point. That doesn't really matter, but the big thing is the attack level 5 buff, because that is going to make Licked incredibly stronger. And then pair that with the other things that we're going to be doing. So with Charlotte, if you go into her, she actually has 2 things that you're going to be using. On the first turn, you're going to use the Incapacitate from her combined skill. Inflicts an Incapacitate level on debuff on the enemy. This only lasts for 1 turn, but that means you're going to get 2 turns without having to worry about the enemy reducing the amount of damage they're taking, because this is a defender enemy in the first phase. You don't want them to reduce the damage that you're going to do, so you're going to incapacitate them. And then on turn 2, you can use the Thorn Garden to inflict a reduced defense level on the enemy as well, making it so your Licked can hit even harder on turn 2. And then the reason we're using Lotus here, go into Lotus, is because obviously he's just, you know, the all-around best debuffer in the game, but inflicts Incapacitate level 3 debuff on all enemies, 55% chance to remove all buffs from an enemy, 50% chance to inflict reduced speed with that one. And then the other option is for the second skill, inflicts extend debuff, inflicts reduced damage resistance, which is really good, and inflicts a concentrated debuff, attack debuff on the enemy for 1 turn. So takes damage as if it's a crit attack, which is really good. So all of that is going to help Licked out immensely, which is why we are running these characters alongside Licht. Licht is our nuker. He's going to be doing most of our damage. Then for phase 2, I am actually using 2 free-to-play players, or free-to-play characters, and real quick, I just want to mention Charlotte is also free-to-play, so there's 3 free-to-play characters that I am using in these builds that you guys could potentially use, and then I'm also using seasonal characters like Asta and Mimosa, who hopefully most everybody has. The characters that you might be lacking are Lotus and like Licht, but hopefully Lotus you got from the reroll banner if you were kind of looked up some guides, because you would have known that he was the best character to pull for. So at this point, you're just really missing Licht, hopefully, as a free-to-play player, and you might be missing Sally. Okay, so those are the 2 that might make this a little bit harder for you. You can replace them with other characters. Just read the characters' abilities, look for like what they do. You're looking for like defense down, or you're looking for buffs that are going to buff your characters. If you're running Raya, who I don't have once again, absolutely get characters who are going to buff him, because he thrives from buffs and does massive nuke damage, okay? But the reason I'm running these characters, let's take a look at them. So for Nebra, okay, if we go in here and look at her skills, she has solid miss clones, which creates a clone, and they to deal damage equal to 35% of attack and magic attack upon using mist bullets. I wouldn't really worry about using that too much. It's not that great. This is okay because it inflicts an incapacitate debuff on the enemy for 2 turns. That can be useful. And then this one is the really big one, though. This is the skill I would use when working with Asta, and this is what I'm going to use, is 40% chance to inflict a transform status element on the enemy for 1 turn. That won't work. You can't transform bosses, but this part will. Inflicts a reduced defense level 4 debuff on the enemy for 2 turns. That's really, really good. Reduces defense by 70%. That is insanely good. That is the main reason we're using Nebra. So like her other abilities aren't going to be as important as her second skill right there. And then her first skill just, you know, it reduces magic attack of the enemy. It is an attacker on this stage, so if we had to, I mean, I guess we could use this, but there's really just no reason to. So you have her for her second skill mainly. And then for Finral, if we go into Finral is overall just absolutely crazy. So his special skill grants all allies increased speed level 3 buff for 2 turns, 60% chance to remove 1 debuff from an ally, and then 50% chance to grant an ally an increased crit rate level 3 buff for 2 turns. Ideally, you get that on Asta, and that could be really, really insane. And then for his second skill, grants all allies increased attack level 2 buff for 2 turns. If a designated ally is buffed with increased crit rate from his other skill, grants them a 10% increased damage dealt buff for 2 turns, 60% chance to grant an ally a 15% mobility buff. So that's really, really good. And then his primary skill grants an increased speed level 2 buff to 2 allies with the lowest mobility. Like, that's okay, but really the 2 big things are his special skill and his secondary skill, and they're just going to really be supporting Asta and making Asta that much stronger. And then Sally, I would say, is the most crazy supporter on this particular team. So if you don't have her, it's going to be a little bit harder, but like, you can still find replacements fairly easily in the free-to-play options for SR characters and rare characters even sometimes. And so for this skill right here, her special skill grants all allies an increased all attack level 3 buff for 2 turns. That increases attack and magic attack by 50%. That's really good. And then also grants an increased crit damage level 2 buff to all allies with the same attribute for 2 turns. And since she is red like Asta, she'll work fairly well with Asta, as long as I am colorblind, so I think that's right, that's not green, right? And then it increases crit rate damage by 35%, which could be really good on Asta as well, so she works really well with him. And then the second skill, Powerful Dose, grants an ally an increased magic attack level 4 buff for 2 turns, and that is 84% increase. Grants an increased crit rate level 4 buff to an ally for 2 turns, and that is a 26% crit rate buff, and then 60% chance to grant an ally an extended buff duration by 2 turns for the buffs, which is just, you know, cherry on top. So very, very good. And then this one doesn't matter, it just gives her lifesteal. So yeah, that's why we're using the characters we're using. And then Asta right here, when you use his ultimate, you can get an additional attack if the enemy is above 80% health. So you use his ultimate, and then you use his secondary skill, and you will just absolutely melt the enemy. You get 2 turns for the price of 1, which is why Asta is so good in this particular raid. With all that said, okay, I'm going to clear part 2 here, and then I'm going to show you guys part 3. Part 3 recommends 130,000 battle power. As you can see, my team 1 has 139,000, but my team 2 only has 120,000. I am working on getting my free-to-play characters leveled up. I did not have them leveled up really at all before the day before the raid. Like, it took me 1 day to get them to UR level 60. I could probably get them up to level 80 here soon, but you know, if I'm able to do that and I wasn't really preparing for it, I would say even free-to-play players, you guys can do that. Use the exchange shop, get your stamina as you need, use the dice roll game to get as much stamina as you need, and focus on working on these 2 characters because those could potentially be your best support characters when it comes to doing well in this raid. So we're going to go ahead and press start here and see how it goes. Hopefully it'll go all right, and I'll explain this as we go through it. So remember, this first enemy is a defender type raid boss that is a blue unit, and Licht is green, so Licht is going to be able to do extra damage against him. We're going to go ahead and we're going to use Charlotte's first skill, which is going to be a combined attack, which is going to inflict incapacitate level 5 debuff on the enemy, and then for Lotus, 60% chance to inflict a reduced mobility debuff on the enemy, which like isn't that important, but yeah. And then if we go over here and look at Beetlegigas, right now he has no applied effects, so he's not reducing damage yet, which is why we want to incapacitate him. Alright, and you saw the incapacitate, and if we go... that laser's annoying. That laser is so annoying. Do we not incapacitate him? I saw the incapacitate. Okay, weird. The incapacitate did not work the way it was supposed to, okay? Be careful getting him below 50% health, though, because he will reduce damage taken. Let's go ahead and we'll do this incapacitate. See if this one works, yeah? Okay, there's incapacitate. There's reduced speed. There we go. Okay, so he is incapacitated there. Increased damage taken by 50% for 2 turns. We'll take that. So that's another reason Lotus is good. All right, and then from there, I don't want to attack with this skill just yet. This is going to be my main damaging skill here, because what this one does is it gives increased crit rate level 4, defense penetration, and afflicts buff immunity on the enemy. This one right here is the one we're going to use because it just increases our crit rate first, and then we'll have more crit rate for the next attack. So we'll go ahead and do this. I might have actually been able to kill him in 1 shot with the second skill right there. Nope, okay, probably not. So, yeah, but I wanted to use this first. So this is going to buff the partner mage and grants the partner mage increased attack level 5 buff. So we're going to go ahead and do this. And look, just got a little bit of extra damage in. Okay, now we're going to decrease defense. Looking good. All right, and then from here, we can extend debuff duration and reduce the damage resistance that this guy has. We might drop him below 50% here. We'll see. Yeah, we dropped him way below 50%. Okay, so now, because he's below 50%, he has this passive going. Grants 50% reduced damage taken if current HP is less than 50%, if current HP is less than 20%, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but we do have concentrated attack on him, reduced damage resistance, reduced defense, reduced speed, and incapacitate. So now we have all those debuffs going. And now we can use this right here. And once again, defense penetration and inflicts buff immunity on the enemy for 2 turns. So this will, I think it'll kill, but we'll see. Okay, pretty close. Not quite. I think at the higher levels it'll work a little bit better because he will still be above 50% health after using all that stuff, right? And then we won't have to worry about that 50% reduced damage, which was a little bit annoying, right? So we'll, hopefully the idea is to burst him before you get below 50% health. In this case, I just was not quite able to. It's fine though, because the incapacitate got us to where we needed to be. And then boom, he's dead. Now we get into the second phase. The second phase, I would argue, can be a little bit harder and a little bit rougher because your team can just get wiped so fast by the attacker. And it's insane. Alright, so I don't think we're going to be faster because my team power is lower, so keep that in mind. The enemy is going to get the first hit. And if we take a look here, Berserk increases damage dealt by 100%. So you want to get through this phase as quickly as you can. So we're going to go ahead and use Finral's move here. Grants all allies increased speed, 60% chance to remove a debuff, and then 50% chance to grant an ally increased crit rate, level 3 buff for 2 turns. We're going to try to use that on Asta. And we did get the increased crit rate on Asta, so that's good. Now we're going to go ahead and use Sally's, grants all allies an increased all attack level 3, and gives them increased crit damage level 2, buff to all allies with the same attribute. So we'll go ahead and do this. Okay, and if we click on Asta now, we should see increased attack, increased all attack, increased crit damage, increased speed, increased crit, increased attack. A lot of increases on Asta, and ideally you would have Nebra go first, but Nebra is not fast enough to go first yet. I need to get her leveled up more, so I could technically just use this right here and wait a turn, or I could use this here and wait a turn, and it's going to give him increased damage 2% like added to these others, but I think we'll get it done. I think Asta will kill. I do have quite a few dupes into my enhancement on my Asta. I know not everybody's going to have that, but I think he'll still get this done. And so he is type neutral because he's red and the enemy's red, so he should work okay. And we do get 2 turns for the price of 1 if we don't kill him here. Pretty dang close, 97,000 damage. Okay, so we'll definitely kill him here. And the buffs on Asta just work really well, as you can see. And there is the raid boss down for phase 3. Now in the next videos, we just have phases 4, 5, 6, and 7 to go over. And let's take a look at how many medals we have total after day 1 compared to how many we're going to need, because that could be a bit rough. So go to the exchange center. And we have 102 medals. So after day 1, we have 102 medals. That's not terrible. How many do we get for part 4? Part 4, you get 30 or 34 plus 35. So you get 60 right there just for doing part 4. Probably around 100 on part 5. Don't know yet exactly because we don't have it. So you'll get about, and then if we beat part 6, let's say 265 on the second day, roughly as a guess. So you'll be at like 365 after 2 days. So I guess it's not too terrible if you're able to beat these higher difficulties. That's the key though. So I know like people free to play looking at this, they're saying 175,000 battle power. Oh my gosh, how am I going to do that? Well, I promise you guys it's possible. I will take it on. I will beat it with a lower battle power. I promise you. And I will show you guys the videos of it. And, you know, I did the same thing with this Noelle right here. I was able to beat Noelle at 195,000 battle power. If you haven't checked out that video yet and you want to score high in this event, you could go check that out before it goes away. But if I'm able to do it on this, I promise you we'll get it done on the raid as well. And I will show you guys how to do it. So if you guys would like to see that, please go down there, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and leave me some comments about what you guys think about this raid, the good, the bad, you know, all of it. There's good aspects, there's bad aspects, obviously. Thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.
Can anybody out there